Let's be honest, 2025 was a difficult year and you made it. Hi, I'm Monica Bernal-Quiroz, Associate Publisher at Pharmacy Business. Welcome to our end of the year podcast, the final dose of 2025. We will be taking an enjoyable, fun, but honest look back at the highs and lows of the past year with a very special lineup of pharmacy leaders. We will cover everything from the rollout of Pharmacy First, the funding squeeze, the tech hype, and the 10-year plan. We will make some bold aspirations for 2026 too, and we would like you to join the conversation too. Please head to our platforms and let us know what was your biggest pain point of 2025 and your biggest hope for 2026. Moderating this session, we have a great friend of Pharmacy Business, Shilpa Shah, who is also the head judge at the Pharmacy Business Awards. Shilpa is CEO of Community Pharmacy, Northeast London. Over to you, Shilpa.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Pharmacy Business Final Dose of 2025 podcast. Really excited today to be moderating this podcast with some amazing guests from the pharmacy world. Not only do we have amazing guests, but we have some that are very colourfully dressed, which is really exciting to see as well. I'd love to see what all your pharmacies look like at the moment. We've got Harry, who's got his famous Scottish tweed and may even be wearing a kilt, but we can only see from there and above, so we're not sure. We have Olivier Picard today, who has got on the most amazing jacket. That is brilliant. I absolutely love that. And we've got Baba, who I think got the wrong memo because I think he thought he was going to be doing the King's speech, and he's come along to address the nation. And we've got the famous Amandeep Dole today as well, and we're really excited to have you all on. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I am going to launch straight into the podcast because I know that all our guests that are listening and watching this are going to want to hear all about what's happening in the pharmacy world. What I will say is that it is just after midday here, so none of us have got our party drinks out because we are still obviously working very hard in the pharmacy world. But if you are watching this and it's not in your pharmacy and it's not during the day, then please feel free to grab yourself a nice drink and to sit down and enjoy the show. So I'm going to start with kind of, with community pharmacy, there has been so much going on. I almost can't believe that we're at the beginning of December. The year has gone so quickly. And I feel like I almost say that every year. Time just goes past. And I feel that in that time, community pharmacy just keeps doing more and more. And we just bring things on. We bring them on really quickly. At the end of October, we launched the emergency contraception service, and we just went with it and we just did it and we didn't think about it. We added new lines to the new medicine service, and we just got on with it. And we don't really celebrate and talk about that enough. But I guess I want to talk to all of you about kind of funding and where you think opportunities might be for 2026, and what would you say have been the real pinch points that have been difficult? We know that funding's been an issue for quite a number of years, but what's been extremely difficult this year? Well, what do you think the opportunities and the positivity could be for 2026 when it comes from funding? So I'm going to start with Baba, who's looking very serious. So I think this is a good serious question to pass.
I thought we agreed I wasn't starting first. Well, there you go. Okay. So, for me as a community pharmacist, I look and think, what can I control? Now, I divide funding into funding deserved and then funding maximized. So the global sum needs to be way higher than what it is. Now, there's new money or not so new money now from Pharmacy First that is not being maximized. So the argument of the government is, we've increased the income, but what they've actually done is they put it in a pot that we can't reach. They put it in the pot that's GP dependent. They've made the service inaccessible via the NHS app. And I'm like, hold on, how do I get my pay rise when you put it in a place beyond me? So I think for me, that's my pinch point, that make Pharmacy First accessible. You want us to do clinical services? Make it accessible. Help us to be able to earn. Pharmacy doesn't want to beg for money. We want to earn the money. So it's very challenging. I understand the global sum where the cost of drugs and all the things that they calculate, you don't even know what you're getting paid for. But I know that if I see a patient for tonsillitis, I get paid X amount. Now give me access to all those who got tonsillitis, then tell a doctor to actually be the one to refer that patient. Book it like you can book my COVID jab. You know what I mean? Do I sound frustrated?
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Baba. Over to Harry.
Yeah, I think one of the, I suppose the positive I could see from last year, Shilpa, was that we had a funding increase, certainly in England. Scotland had one, Wales have just announced theirs, so that's all kind of positive. I agree with Baba, though, that appeared to be all soaked up in national living wage and national insurance contributions. So it seemed to give with one hand and maybe take away with the other. To build on Baba's point as well, I suppose my experience, having been north of the border, is that Pharmacy First there is citizen-led. So in other words, the people come in and access the service rather than having maybe some more of relying on a referral. So maybe an opportunity for next year would be to look at, actually, could we give that access that Baba has very eloquently asked for? And maybe actually it could be done by giving the citizen the right to start the service and therefore Baba receive the funding that's available.
It looks like we've lost Shilpa.
Could have done. Could have done. So waiting on her coming back in. Olivier, how about you answer the same question and we'll keep
Yeah, I mean, thank you. Oh, Shilpa is coming back. Shilpa, shall I try and answer the question as well? Can you hear us? Okay, yes.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Thank you, Olivier.
You know, the pain points, I think, of 2025 have been around the delay that pharmacists have had to wait for an announcement on funding, and then to be told that the independent economic analysis identified what looked like a £2.6 billion gap between where we should be and where we are. Whatever was going to be on offer was always going to be sort of light. However, you know, you've got to think that the government made a step in the right direction, but we still lost 1,400 pharmacies in the last 10 years. There's a lot of churn in the pharmacy market with larger group divesting and new buyers coming in onto the market. So I think the access to the funding is essential. We were told earlier this year that the government had made a step in the right direction. What I would like to see is the next step being just as important, because if we are being slapped with what will likely be much less increase, actually the gap between where we are and what the independent economic analysis has identified will just continue growing. And pharmacies will continue closing. And as Baba and Harry have said, you know, we need to not be dependent on other primary care providers to deliver our contract. But at the same time, if I'm going to invest in my business, and if my members at the NPA are going to invest in their business, they need to have a vision that allows them to do so. And currently, I don't believe we have that.
No, that's true. And I think it'd be really interesting to see what next year is going to bring that's very different, because we already know there's going to be an increase in the wages and national insurance, etc. So it'd be interesting to see what that negotiation brings along. Amandeep, I'm going to ask you the same question, but from a different point of view, I guess. You know, I know that obviously the Royal Pharmaceutical Society is going through a big change at the moment, and hopefully, you know, we're going to be seeing, you know, a college being born, a Royal College. And I guess, where do you believe the opportunities lie with the role that the Royal College can play with supporting community pharmacy, whilst you don't get involved in negotiations as such, but, you know, how can you support the clinical work we do and celebrate that and help other healthcare professionals understand how great we are, how we are accessible, we're on the high street, we're open weekends, we're there all the time. So what do you believe, and I don't mean you personally, but the Royal College will be able to influence, I guess?
I think, well, some of it we're already doing. So I don't know if people listening have already seen that we were at the Health Select Committee. We were invited to give evidence for around neighbourhood teams a couple of weeks ago. And I think our role as the Royal College, and as we continue to build as a Royal College, is to advocate for community pharmacy in those spaces, making sure we're highlighting the value that community pharmacy bring, but also ensuring that there's sustained funding in delivering these new services. It seems as if when you read the 10-year plan that community pharmacy is the answer to neighbourhood teams, and you know, we are the most patient-facing part of the system, but you need to have joint commission services to make sure that there's clearer pathways in establishing who can see which patients, and those parts of the system are funded adequately and the resources are sustainable, and also making sure that it's clear in identifying which patients we can see in which part of the system, but when to refer, because I think it will also help with some of that interdisciplinary working with GPs and other healthcare professionals. So our role as the Future Royal College is to kind of advocate and be the voice for community pharmacy in those rooms where we have access. But also, it's not just us being in that room, it's also my job as the Director of England to speak to colleagues like Harry, Olivia and Baba and yourself to go, right, what are the things that we need to be saying and what are the things that I need to understand what's happening on the ground to be able to articulate that in a way that's clear and meaningful to people who can influence that change.
That's brilliant. I really look forward to seeing some of those changes. And I think that there's a lot of work that goes on in the background that people don't know about at the moment already, that a lot of organisations do. But I think that when we become a Royal College, when you become a Royal College, I think it will really hopefully demonstrate that a bit more publicly, which will be really good to see. I'm going to move on to talk about tech. There's been a lot of talk about tech. And I was reflecting on this because it's really funny that I wouldn't say I'm the most techie person. My niece and nephew, 10-year-old twins, can do so much more than I can. And I look at them and they just whiz around on these like phones and they're like, I'll show you how to do this, I'll show you how to do that. But also I am actually IT support for both my mum and dad. So like often my mum will phone me and she'll be like, I've lost all my emails. And she hasn't, she's just pressed the filter button or something. And the panic, and I just think it's really weird that I feel like I'm stuck a bit in the middle. And I'd say that's where a lot of our community pharmacists are at the moment as well. You've got some that are, whiz kids and want to try everything new, and then you've got some that are quite rightly apprehensive. And there is a cost involved as well. And I'm actually going to start with Baba again on this because I know you're a massive fan of tech, which is why I want to come to you first. But I think, what advice would you give to community pharmacists out there who are almost on the cusp of thinking about introducing different types of tech, and also to those that are just nowhere near even thinking about it? What simple piece of advice would you be able to give them for 2026, something that they can look at and think, okay, I can do this?
For those who are listening who are old enough, you remember the grandparent clause. I say there is no grandparent clause for not embracing tech. That's just the way life is now. Now, it might be that you need to embrace what Shupo referred to as a 10-year-old twin, which is a younger pharmacist, to come on board and run that part for you and take you to the next page, or Shupo's support for her mom. There is no grandparent clause. Every business has got to move over. I was speaking at the Avestina conference and I asked for a show of hands, actually it was an audit on the screen, for how many pharmacies are still printing. Now, if you think about it, the government is going from analog to digital. But one thing that they've done really well is to produce a digital prescription. And what most of our colleagues, that was like 75% of our colleagues are doing, is like downloading Netflix onto a DVD and putting it in a DVD player. When you print an ETP, think about it. Taxpayers have paid for that to be digital. So that ETP can speak to a software that's AI driven. They can speak to a robot to bring the product for you to actually do the accuracy checking via AI. So when you think about that, that frees a lot of staff to do other things. The clinical services that Amandi and her team are representing us well, NPA, IPA, NUMA, they're all trying to say bring more clinical services. But we are saying we're not free. We don't have the time. Why? Because we're not using tech to enable what tech is meant to enable. It's a massive enabler. You have no choice.
I love that. I think people do need to start looking at it, but I think we also do need to appreciate there's still people out there that are just it's not even always about the cost. It is just, how am I going to get my head around this? And that's something, and it's changing a culture, isn't it? Not just of yourself, but of your team, and trying to introduce new things. Olivier, what's your story? What do you use a lot of tech? Well, actually, no, Olivier, I'm going to ask you not to talk about tech in your pharmacy. You've been really active on all the different social media recently, and I noticed recently you've moved from a bit of written text to maybe a video, and that's very different to, I know, obviously, the role that you do at the chair of the NPA. It's really increased your visibility, and that's probably a bit different to maybe 2-3 years ago. So what's made you do that? Is it, and I think also, if you want to just share about your, when you take a selfie, how you learned from your daughter, one of the best ways to do this.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from my 16 and 18-year-old recently. Like you, it's inspiring to see how quickly they can pick up on trends, which would take me months to catch up with. Tech is at the center of everything that we do now. It's in the 10-year plan. Pharmacists are changing their PMR system. It's inevitable. The NHS is investing £300 million in tech. So that tells me that I also need to embrace tech. What I have learned actually is that by sharing what happens to me on social media, it actually brings people to realize that contractors, that they are not on their own. Pharmacy is very isolated as a profession. So by being able to look at someone else struggle, I suppose, if you can call it that, then they generally can relate to that. And there are lots of things that pharmacy is doing, and I'm hoping that some of the investment announced in the recent budget, the £300 million for IT, will help community pharmacy. But on a personal level, you're right, Shilpa. I've launched a TikTok channel recently. And what I'm doing is I am getting my 16 and 18-year-old to tell me what's trending and, more importantly, how to do it. So watch out. Follow me on TikTok if you want to, but watch out for some videos that maybe are not the one of a 50-year-old, but more of a 16-year-old. And that's to bring a little bit of light humor into what can be quite a dry world in pharmacy. So I look forward to more. I've been taught how to do a 0.5 photo on my phone, and now I'm being taught how to do TikTok videos. So I can't wait to give more to our friends and people in pharmacies. But back to a serious note, as I said, the NHS has got £300 million that we'll spend on IT. A huge amount will go on the NHS app. But in pharmacy, we still have to pay for everything, from our computer system to access to the point of care delivery. And we really need pharmacies to be supported. If there's one thing that NHS England and the department can do, is to help pharmacy get on the digital journey.
I love that, but I'm most excited in that actually hearing about your TikTok platform as well. So I really look forward to following you on TikTok. I look forward to seeing you doing a little bit of a Christmas pharmacy dance. Maybe you could get.
We've got 2 TikTok coming up that we're preparing in the next couple of weeks. So between now and Christmas, you might be able to see a couple of things slightly different to what you normally see on LinkedIn.
I love it. We've got there's a guy that I follow on Instagram who's like the singing dentist. But what we could have, I've just thought about it, like, fashionista pharmacist. And you could have all your different outfits on and be modelling them.
Who knows where this takes us, Shilpa?
I know. Let's see. We'll get Pharmacy Business maybe to sponsor your TikTok, and you could do some great work with them.
Shilpa, I'm of the age where TikTok's the noise that a clock makes. That's just
I was actually going to come to you next and sort of say, as a more mature person on this, a bit of a golden oldie, but I was going to try and be polite, and the jest it's meant.
Of course.
But yeah, go on. What do you think about sort of social media and tech and?
Social media, certainly to get messages out. I think in terms of video platforms, it makes it a bit more personal than what we used to do in terms of either stick it on a website or put an email or a letter out. So I think that's a good thing. Returning to your question about tech, and I really like the title because I think it stands for 2 things: technology and technicians. And I think they both have a role about where that fits particularly within community pharmacy practice. Technology is the digitization. I agree with Baba and Olivia about how all that can go and how it should make it efficient. And I think technicians for us to assist us with, there's a clue in the title, the technical aspect of running a community pharmacy. And maybe me speaking, I can say it as a pharmacist, in that we need to let some of that go and move into that real clinical space that I am undoubtedly prescribing is going to afford us that opportunity to do so. And I can understand, I'm saying as the older, it'll pass me by, but certainly as the young generation of pharmacists coming through, it's a real differential. And it's something I would like to leave a platform or any form of legacy that makes it easy for people to use. So to deploy that, we need technology and technicians for me.
Yeah.
And how can we do that?
I absolutely love that. I think some of the best colleagues I've worked with have been pharmacy technicians. And I think they've been better than me at the job they do. You know, and I love working with them. So I like that. I like that, you know, using the term tech can mean pharmacy technician, or we can look at technology as well. And I think we kind of need to move forward with both, don't we, in the new year? Really get to where we need to get to. Amandeep, from a Royal College point of view, I know you guys write lots of policies and kind of, you know, things around, you know, using social media. So I guess, you know, what is your advice out there around social media and you know, because social media can really be used for the good, the greater good, but also sometimes there's things on there that you just sort of think, oh, we're healthcare professionals, I might not have put that on that platform for everyone to hear and see our most inner thoughts, because we all have different thoughts, don't we? Just might not want to share them all.
Well, we're not going to censor anyone from the Royal College of Pharmacy. Everyone's entitled to say what they want within, obviously, the professional limits. So we would encourage people to perhaps think, maybe draft the post and then pause before posting it. But I have to say, it's good also to encourage healthy debate, because what we don't want is groupthink within the profession. So sometimes actually these more dissenting voices or more debatey posts are actually really helpful when it comes to thinking about actually where's pharmacy moving forward. And actually sometimes it's a way of getting people to listen, and people do notice that and actually have influence. So I'd say healthy debate is always really good to have, to make sure that we're not missing a trick, and everyone's got different ideas, and I especially encourage the more early careers pharmacists, because they're the ones perhaps using social media, using it as a platform. You know, if you've got a thought, if you feel like you're not being heard, absolutely use it as a space, because people do listen, and we are a lot more like LinkedIn to it, not the LinkedIn platform, but just generally like, you know, listening to it. I just wanted to actually use this opportunity to think about more tech in a broader sense. And as the Royal College, we want to make sure that the profession is digitally ready and has the skills to be able to respond to all these advances. But also, and there was Yasmin, who's a pharmacist, who's a digital pharmacist. Something she said when I was listening to her on a panel was, it's also about responding and reacting to where patients are, because they're going to be coming with TikTok diagnoses and AI has told me this, and actually how do we respond as a pharmacist to those diagnoses? So not a patient not coming in to look for a diagnosis, but made that diagnosis. And then that's another skill, isn't it? Having to navigate that conversation where they've already made their mind up, and actually we need to be ready for that, or they've already got their advice and they just want to come and buy something from the pharmacy. So it's also about meeting patients where they are at. And also with the app, you know, if you are someone who's not got as much digital literacy as a patient, I'm assuming they're going to come to community pharmacies and say, can you help me with ordering my repeat prescription on the app? And so actually as a pharmacist or pharmacy team, you'll be responding to a lot of those queries as well. So we need to not just be thinking about tech from our workforce streamline perspective, but also how we can help patients navigate this new analog to digital world.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Just thinking about, you know, Dr. Google and how much information it gives, but it's actually moving even further into that, isn't it? And people are actually getting advice from AI and ChatGPT and using that to sort of maybe think about how they take their medication, and we have a role to play in that. But actually that moves us on to sort of clinical services, and we've obviously got lots of different NHS clinical services. I personally think I don't understand sort of from a community pharmacy point of view why there isn't a pharmacist out there that has invented a cure for hangover. So like, you know, maybe like a little IV drip that you can go in on Boxing Day and have after your Christmas Day. You know, I think that would just be a massive money-making scheme. But actually thinking about that and thinking about private services as well as NHS services, how do we really move those forward? I'm going to start with Harry first on that. Like, what are your thoughts around NHS versus private?
Yep. I think both have a role to play. So again, if I use my experience north of the border, you've got NHS Pharmacy First Plus, where we've got prescribing as part of an NHS, let's say, core service. So I think it's comfortable for the pharmacy network in Scotland to adopt that. Wales is very similar. I think the Pathfinder bit may be slightly different in England and how that all fits together. But I do think there's a real role, and actually taking this opportunity to say that I would love to see the community pharmacy network manage repeat prescribing. You know, maybe, you know, I could really see that being a functioning role for the network as we go forward. So that takes me, I see that as a big role in the NHS. I think we often think about prescribing as just being the acute bit. I think it's a massive role and repeat and making the best use of medicines that people and patients can get. So I think that's the NHS for me. Surprising when we move into the private services possibly, but the growth and explosion, I might even say, in weight management over the last 10 months has been huge in that respect.
Yeah.
And I think it's just opened up community pharmacies' eyes to the potential of what a private service could be. Still needs to be appropriate clinically, still needs to be well governed and done, all of that with it. But actually, the private market has gone much bigger. So something like, a support organisation like Newmark to look at, well, how do we truly support that prescribing platform, all of that sort of thing, so that we're well governed, but actually use our clinical skills to the benefit of a patient.
Yeah.
And I think private next year in 2026 will be another year of growth.
Yeah.
And not to be frightened from it, but to do it well and do it appropriately.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I just think about it's when you talked about weight loss there, and I just think we all do it, don't we? We all overindulge at Christmas, and we all say January we're going to start that new diet.
Yeah.
This year, I think is going to be very different because it's not just going to be about starting a new diet. It could be about starting a new.
Very true, Sean. Yep.
Yeah,
very
and
true.
I've got to be ready for that and stuff. I still think the hangover drip would be the best.
It's called Iron Brew. It's called Iron Brew in Scotland.
I love
full
that
fat Iron Brew.
In there, done it. Yeah, I love that. Amandeep, what do you think the future looks like for services in pharmacy, community pharmacy?
I think there's complete, I suppose the world is your oyster here with prescribers being, pharmacy prescribing being a thing now. And actually, I think the first thing we need to make sure is everyone's upskilled to be able to prescribe, because what we don't want to risk is having a bit of a two-tier workforce with newly qualified pharmacists coming out in 2026, and then the more experienced pharmacists being left behind. So we need to make sure we're putting energy and effort into upskilling community pharmacists to prescribe and then actually using those skills. So I completely understand the need to think about private services, because obviously not everything's commissioned through the NHS. But I just put a caveat on that is, from a health inequalities perspective, what you don't want to introduce is a potential exclusion to services because patients can't afford private services. Just thinking about actually how do we make sure that they're still accessible, but completely understand that there's a business need to make sure that you're creating a profit, or making sure that the business is running. So I think there's absolutely opportunity there, and I'm excited to see where we go, because I think community pharmacy has been underutilized massively, and we know that people are responding and doing all of this daily, and it's actually nice to be formally recognized for that and have the skills formalized to grow.
Yeah, no, that sounds brilliant. I'm going to go to Baba, and then I'm going to move us on to the next question, which I'll put towards you, Olivier. But Baba, if you can just talk about services, what are your thoughts around I know how much you love services. So
Absolutely, and I've been out there on social media asking us to learn from dentists, because really our negotiating power is limited when we're saying to the government, give us everything. Now, we want everything from them because we deserve what we're asking for. However, the leverage of actually looking on the private side is massive. Now we're prescribers, as we say, but not just us. So pharmacists have got to look beyond just yourself. You're a prescriber, but how about hosting a GP, hosting an osteopath, where you're actually now, because you have invested in consultation rooms, and I'm not getting enough commissioning to use the consultation rooms, so I'm opening it up to others. There is a queue. There's an exodus of GPs from GP practices. Just Google online. There's an exodus. They're looking for a place to private practice. We are perfect. They were asking if they could attend the pharmacy business conference. I actually know of a doctor who actually snuck in. She went to look for a pharmacist and said, "Can you invite me? I'll tag along." They want to work with us. So it's not just, there's NHS services and we should get them. So if I get NHS services, I'll do that. But if I don't, I'm looking at me doing private services myself. But who else can use my consulting room? Telehealth. There's a lot that I'm expecting from next year.
No, I think that's really interesting, and I think what we really need to think about doing things differently. And what I'd ask all our listeners out there to do is have a look at some of the videos that Baba has posted around what dentists are doing, because it is really interesting and it will just make you think differently about your business. So please do check those out. I'm going to move on to, demonstrating a unified community pharmacy approach. And sometimes it feels that there's a lot going on in community pharmacy, and it feels a bit like sometimes it's a pantomime, which is really apt for this time of year. And, you've almost got, why aren't these groups working together? Why are those groups working together? And you have some groups going off to Parliament and others aren't. And it's almost like, they're there, they're behind you. No, they're not. Yes, they are. They're behind you. It really does feel like a pantomime. And I guess, I know you've been trying to do a lot of work, Olivier, around this as the chair of the NPA, but how do we, really make sure that we have unified messages? How do we maybe respect each other on social media and have conversations off platform, if we're not happy with something or if we think something could have been done differently? Because what is the point in sort of publicly announcing things for everyone to see? I think that just, obviously doesn't make us look very good. And we're not a pantomime. We are a very serious healthcare professional, as you can see from Olivier's suit right now. Over to you, Olivier.
Yes, thank you for bringing my suit in. I always like to try and make an effort. Never want to be the center of attention, but to be a bit more serious. You're right, Shilpa. We need message discipline, right? Without that, it's difficult. So I'm going to ask you a question to all four of you there. Who think in this room that we should spend more time fighting with one another rather than, trying to work together to get the funding we deserve? Put your hand up if we think we should be fighting. You see, and that's the message that I get, or the answer that I get when I ask that question. So since I've become the chair of the NPA, I have publicly reached out to the CCA, Community Pharmacy England, to the IPA. I've even had a conversation with IPCN. I've joined a few WhatsApp group. I'm trying to be more involved with what happens in the community pharmacy world, exactly to achieve this. There is too much internal dispute. And if I compare ourselves to, for example, the GPs or the doctors, trust me, because I've been in that room, the BMA and the RCGP, they don't agree on everything. But when they go out and they talk to ministers and policymakers, they certainly are able to have some agreement and a unified message. And this is where we're lacking. However, in recent months, I'm very pleased to say that we've met, with all these other organizations. We've even had a round table with members from the CCA, IPA, and NPA all together with Stephen Kinnock. So we are making progress. One thing that I can tell you is that the NPA will never attack anyone publicly or even behind closed doors. And the idea of launching my TikTok channel is to bring a little bit of light-hearted touch to what is sometimes a very serious matter. But actually, it's also to show that it doesn't matter which organization you think you are associated with or you feel should represent you. Actually, the work that we do, whether you are working for someone who is represented by the CCA, IPA, IPCN, or the NPA, is the same. And we heard this, from a previous question about services. Everybody agrees on that, and I see everybody agree on the messages. So, the light-hearted touch is to really make it feel real. Actually, there are bigger things in the world than just infighting, and personally, I want to see a stop to it, and I will work every hour that I can whilst I'm the chair of the NPA to make sure that we can go out with a united voice when we go and talk to policymakers and politicians.
I love that. So next year it's going to be more like a serious, like a serious documentary rather than the pantomime that we sometimes see.
I'm hoping that we get certainly on the path to something that can bring a meaningful result for every pharmacy out there, not just an NPA member, every pharmacy.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you. So we're just about to wrap up now. I can't believe it's gone really quickly. I feel like there's so many other things that I want to ask you. But I'm just going to go around now. And I guess what I'd like from all of you is just sort of a bit of a Christmas message to pharmacy business readers and your predictions or wishes for them for 2026. So I'll start with Amandine.
I suppose the message to the readers is thank you for all the hard work that you've been doing over the last year, and particularly over this very busy period of Christmas. I can't imagine what it's like on the real. Well, I'm a hospital pharmacy, so I've got my own experience, but in community pharmacy, I appreciate it's it's busy. So thank you for all the hard work that you do. Looking forward to next year, I think there's a lot of opportunity with the neighbourhood health teams and all the things that we've talked about today about the services and prescribing. So I think there was a real year of growth and opportunity for pharmacy with collaboration. I think that is a whole thing within pharmacy for us to work on collaborating and being a more unified voice.
Brilliant, thank you. Harry?
Yeah, mine's is a thank you to everybody again for what they've done in the community setting across the 4 countries of the UK. So I think they've done a fantastic job. So and I wish them a Merry Christmas. The one thing to look forward to next year, I would say, is I think it's a once in a generation opportunity that is coming up with prescribing, and I agree with Olivia, we've got to be together to grasp that. So it's really that aspect of move forward into that kind of prescribing space and take it, because I remember being small batch manufacture and we're now moving into clinical prescribing, and it's right for evolution for the profession. So embrace it. And thanks again for everything you've done.
Thank you, Harry. Baba?
Well, I'll say Christmas is about giving. And as a community pharmacist, you're giving every day to your communities. And so well done for that. But Christmas time, it's time to celebrate ourselves, celebrate every member of the team, delivery drivers, everybody. Celebrate that. But, also celebrate family. Take time out and spend time with family and recharge, because we're human beings. So for 2026, I'll say what Tariq Mohammed said at the pharmacy show, be more dentist. And I'll also say what Dubai says to me, we as a profession need to be open to private GPs, because they're coming, they're looking for us.
I love that, very different. Olivier?
Thank you, Sheila. We know funding is tight, and I worry about 2026 settlement. A settlement that doesn't cover our increased cost is going to be unacceptable. But as Harry said, 2026 has to be about the opportunities. The opportunity of a lifetime, from changing our behavior from a dispensing bench to a clinical services, currently using PGDs, tomorrow using independent prescribing. I worry about not having any independent prescribing in community pharmacy and having all the new graduates going to work in other parts of the health service, whether that being hospital or elsewhere in primary care. For those like Baba who remember the grandparent clause, I remember the fallow year 25 years ago. This, if we don't embrace independent prescribing, is going to feel like a fallow year after year after year after year until we have independent prescribing, because none of the new graduates will want to work in community pharmacy. We predict a tough funding round, but ever the optimist, I will do everything I can to do what Harry, Baba, and Amandeep have said, which is grasp the opportunity that's coming, make it happen, whether that's NHS and private services. I want pharmacy not just to survive, but to thrive. And that is my wish for 2026.
Yep.
Oh, I absolutely love that. So I'd just like to take a moment to say thank you to everyone working out there in whichever pharmacy sector, but obviously community pharmacy in particular, to all the teams that are out there keeping the show on the road, and for those that are even going to be open on Christmas Day, because we have rotas and Boxing Day, etc. But I would say please do try and get some time off and spend that time with family and friends and enjoy a bit of the festive spirit. For 2026, I think look, everyone's been amazing in all the years I've worked, 25 years plus in community pharmacy, and I know it'll be another great year, and I think people will get through, because we always do, and I hope that there's lots of different opportunity, because it feels like there's things coming our way. So please grab those opportunities and make sure that you're, maximising your workforce, maximising technology, pharmacy technicians, etc., and make it a year that you can look back and say, we did things differently and it really did help our business. I think that's really important. I am also, I do about 1 million different things. I am now going to work on my new side hustle, which is recreating Iron Brew in a pharmacy formulation for that hangover cure. And I'm going to obviously have to retire because I'll be so rich. So I might not be able to.
Yeah.
But also just to all our listeners out there, all our pharmacy business supporters, we have got the infamous Pharmacy Business Conference on Sunday, the 19th of April. So please do go over to the website and make sure you register register for that. And we've got our Pharmacy Business Awards on Wednesday, the 7th of October. I'm the head judge for those, and I would love to see lots of new nominees coming through this year. Lots of because there is so many people to celebrate out in the pharmacy world, so I'd love to see those coming through. And throughout the year, there'll be lots of different events and podcasts and different things going on. So please do take a look at the website when you get a little bit of time and think about what kind of things you'd like to join us for next year. But Merry Christmas, everybody. I wish you all a great Christmas and a very happy new year. And yeah, here's to 2026. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.